When my children stopped coming home, I didn't cry. I thought I would. I thought the loneliness would break me in half. But instead, I just sat there, at the edge of my bed, listening to the clock tick on the wall. It was a quiet evening. The kind of evening when you expect footsteps, voices, maybe the laughter of grandchildren echoing in the hallway. But the house was silent. Only the hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen kept me company. You see, I had always believed that family meant togetherness, that no matter how far they went, my children would always return to this home, the one we built with love, with sacrifice, with years of hard work. I believed in the warmth of Sunday dinners, in birthdays spent around the table, in visits that brought joy to these old walls. But that night, as I sat alone, I realized something had changed. They had stopped coming home. And it wasn't sudden. No, it happened slowly. First, fewer phone calls. Then shorter visits. Then excuses, busy schedules, traffic, work, the children's homework, the tiredness of life. I nodded every time. I smiled over the phone and told them I understood. But inside, I could feel the distance growing like a wall between us. I never wanted to admit it, but deep down, I had always feared this day. The day when my role as a mother, as the heart of the home, would fade away into memory. When my children would belong to other homes, let their lives, and have their priorities. That night, sitting in the quiet, I whispered to myself, so this is what it feels like when your children stop coming home. I should start at the beginning. Maybe if I tell you how it all was, you'll understand why it hurts the way it does now. I grew up in a small village. Life was simple, sometimes hard, but full of love. My parents taught me that family is everything. My mother used to say, you can lose money, you can lose possessions, but if you have family, you are never poor. I carried those words in my heart all my life. When I met my husband, I was just 21. He was a quiet man, kind, with strong hands from working in the fields. We didn't have much, but we had dreams. We built our first little house with bricks that didn't match, windows that rattled in the wind, and a roof that sometimes leaked in the rain. But to us, it was a palace. And then the children came, 3 of them. Each one was a gift I never stopped thanking God for. My eldest was a boy, strong, curious, always asking questions. He would follow his father everywhere, copying his every move. My second was a girl, gentle, shy, always holding onto my skirt. And then came the youngest, another boy, full of laughter, always running, always climbing. Those years were the best of my life. The house was never quiet, shoes scattered by the door, toys under the table, school books piled high. I can still hear their voices calling, Mama, where's my lunch? Or, Papa, can you help me with this? Every evening, we sat together for dinner. No matter how tired we were, we ate as a family. My husband would ask about their day, and they would talk over one another, eager to share every little story. I would just sit back, watching, my heart full. I thought those moments would last forever. But time is a thief. Slowly, the children grew. One by one, they left for the city, for studies, for work, for their own dreams. I was proud. Oh, so proud. That was what we worked for, to give them a better life, a future brighter than ours. I never imagined that in giving them wings, I would lose the warmth of their presence. At first, they came home often, weekends, holidays, special occasions. The house would come alive again, just as it used to. We cooked their favorite meals. We stayed up late talking. The walls echoed with laughter again. And then, just as quickly, the house would grow quiet after they left. I told myself it was natural. Children grow, children leave, children build their own families. That is life. But slowly, the visits became fewer. Sometimes, months passed before I saw them. The calls became shorter, too. A quick hello, a rushed, how are you, Mama? Before they had to hang up, I tried not to complain. I told myself, they are busy. They are working hard. They have children of their own now. I wanted to be understanding. I wanted to be the kind of mother who never became a burden. And yet, at night, when the house was silent, I missed them with an ache that no words could soften. Sometimes, I would set the table for more people than were there. Old habits. I would catch myself placing 4 or 5 plates, and then realize only 2 were needed, just for me and my husband. He would smile gently and say, "They'll come next time, don't worry." But I could see in his eyes that he missed them too. Life went on. Seasons changed. My hair grew grayer, my steps a little slower, but my heart remained full of hope. Every week, I told myself, maybe they will come this Sunday, maybe they will surprise me. At first, the excuses were soft. My eldest son would call and say, "Mama, I wanted to come, but work is too heavy this week. Maybe next time." I would smile through the phone and answer, "Of course, son, work is important. Take care of yourself." My daughter would say, "Mama, the children have exams. It's too hard to travel right now." Again, I would nod, even though she could not see me. "I understand. Study is important. Don't worry about me." And my youngest would laugh, "Mama, you know me. I sleep half the weekend away. But I'll come soon. I promise." Soon. That was the word I heard most often. Soon never came. One Sunday, I set the table for everyone. I cooked their favorite dishes, chicken curry for my eldest, rice pudding for my daughter, and spicy fried fish for the youngest. The smells filled the house, and my heart beat faster. I thought, this time, they will come. They will walk through that door, and we will eat together again. But the door never opened. The food grew cold. My husband and I sat across from each other in silence. He forced a smile and said, "At least we have enough food for tomorrow." I nodded, but my heart sank like a stone. That night, I cried quietly into my pillow, so he wouldn't hear. The phone calls grew shorter, too. My eldest often answered while driving, his voice distracted. "Yes, Mama, I'm fine. Yes, I ate. Okay, I have another call now. Talk later." The line would go dead before I could even say, "I love you." My daughter answered between chores, her voice full of rushing. "Yes, Mama, I'm cooking. The kids are fighting. I'll call you later." She rarely did, and my young guest Smits didn't answer at all. Days would pass before he returned my call, saying, "Oh, sorry. Why, Mama, I forgot." How does a child forget his mother? One evening, my husband said gently, "Maybe we should visit them instead. Maybe they are too busy to come here." So we tried. We packed small bags, took the bus to the city. When we knocked on my eldest son's door, he opened it with surprise in his eyes. "Oh, Mama, Papa, you didn't tell me you were coming." I smiled, embarrassed. "We wanted to surprise you." His wife looked uneasy. "The house was small, and she said, "We only have 1 bedroom. It will be difficult for you to stay here." I felt a sting in my chest, but I forced my smile wider. No, don't worry. We will just spend the day." We stayed for a few hours, but I could feel the tension. My son checked his watch often. My daughter-in-law kept tidying around us, as if we were in her way. When evening came, we left without being asked to stay. On the bus ride home, I held my husband's hand tightly. Neither of us spoke. We didn't need to. The silence said enough. When we visited my daughter, it was no different. She welcomed us warmly at first, but her husband looked uncomfortable. "It's hard for us to manage with guests," he said quietly one night when she was not in the room. I swallowed the lump in my throat and whispered, "We understand." The next morning, we left early, and my youngest, when we knocked on his door, he was not even home. A neighbor said he had gone on a trip with friends. He had forgotten we told him we were coming. We returned home with heavy hearts. The house felt emptier than ever. The distance grew not only in miles, but in hearts. They stopped asking how we were, stopped noticing our birthdays, our anniversaries. Some years, the only gift was silence. I remember one particular birthday. I sat by the window all day, waiting for the phone to ring. It never did. My husband finally bought a small cake from the shop. We lit a candle together. He said softly, "Make a wish." I closed my eyes and whispered, "I wish my children would come home." But when I opened them, only the 2 of us sat there. the candle flickering in the quiet. Sometimes, neighbors would ask, "Why don't your children visit anymore?" I would smile and make excuses. "Oh, they are busy. You know how life is in the city." But inside, shame burned. I wondered if people thought we had been bad parents, that our children didn't care for us because we didn't raise them well. I wanted to shout, "We gave them everything. We loved them with all our hearts." But instead, I stayed quiet. There were nights when my husband coughed badly, and I thought, what if something happens to him? Will they come then? Or will they just send a message? I imagined myself alone in this house, the walls closing in, the silence crushing. Fear gripped me like cold hands. I tried to push those thoughts away. I told myself, they will come back. They love us. They are just busy now. But each passing month proved otherwise. The hardest part was the small moments. The chair was left empty at dinner. The photographs, thin dust on the shelf. The toys of my grandchildren, given long ago, a rest deal lying untouched in a corner. Every sound reminded me of them. The creak of the gate outside. For a moment, I would think, they are here. But it was only the wind. The ring of the phone. My heart would race, only to find it was a telemarketer. It was as if hope itself became a cruel game. Then came the day my daughter-in-law spoke words I will never forget. We had called, asking if we could visit. She sighed over the phone, and said, "Mama, maybe it's better if you don't come so often. The children are busy. We don't have space. You belong in your own home. You belong in your own home." Her words cut deep. I smiled weakly and said, "Of course, child, I understand." But when I hung up the phone, my hands trembled. That night, I told my husband, "She doesn't want us there anymore." He stayed silent for a long time. Finally, he whispered, "Then we will stay here, just the two of us." From then on, I stopped expecting. I stopped cooking big meals on Sundays. I stopped waiting by the window. Hope had become too heavy to carry. But still, when I passed by their old bedrooms, when I touched the photos on the wall, when I folded clothes that no one wore anymore, my heart ached with memories. I remembered the little boy who held my hand on the way to school, the little girl who used to braid my hair, the youngest T, who always brought me flowers from the field. Where had they gone? How had we lost them? Even though they were still alive, still breathing, still just a phone call away. And so the days turned into weeks, the weeks into months. The laughter of the past became only an echo in this empty house. I began to ask myself, did I do something wrong? Did I fail as a mother? Or is this just what happens when children grow? But no answer came, only silence. It happened on a rainy evening. The sky was heavy. The wind howled through the cracks of our old house, and the sound of raindrops against the window felt like 1,000 tiny knocks. I sat in the kitchen, staring at 2 cups of tea that had already grown cold. My husband was resting in the bedroom. His cough had been worse lately. I looked at the clock on the wall. It was my birthday. I hadn't told anyone, but I thought, surely, they will remember. Surely today, at least one of them will call. The hours dragged on. Morning turned to afternoon, afternoon to evening, evening to night. The phone never rang. I sat at the table, hands folded, waiting. The silence was louder than any storm outside. Finally, my husband came out, weak but smiling. In his hands was a tiny slice of bread with a candle stuck in it. He placed it in front of me and whispered, "Happy birthday." Tears filled my eyes. I smiled for him, but my heart broke. No call, not one message, not even a word. That night, I cried openly, not into my pillow, but into his arms. "They've forgotten me," I whispered. "My own children have forgotten me." He stroked my hair gently and said, "Maybe they will remember tomorrow." But tomorrow came and went. Still, nothing. The weeks after that grew heavier. My husband's health declined. The cough grew worse, his steps slower. I told the children, but they only answered with, "Take him to the doctor, Mama. He will be fine." I wanted to scream, "You don't understand. I am old too. I cannot carry this alone." But instead, I just said softly, "Yes, I will." I took him to the clinic by myself, held his arm, paid thy bills, and carried the medicines home. Not one of them came to help. Not one asked, "Do you need me there?" At night, I sat by his bed, listening to his labored breathing, and thought, if something happens, will they come, or will I be left alone to bury the man who built this family with me? Then came the day it truly broke me. It was a Sunday afternoon. The sun was bright, and the birds were chirping. I heard the gate creak, and my heart leaped. I rushed to the window, thinking, they've come. My children have come. But it wasn't them. It was a delivery boy, holding a package. He handed it to me, and said, "Sign here." I opened the box inside. It was a new phone, a gift from my eldest son. There was a note attached. "Mama, this will make it easier for you to call us. Love, your son." For a moment, my heart softened. But then, I realized he hadn't sent it so he could call me. He had sent it so I could call him. So the responsibility was mine, not his. I sank into the chair, holding that shiny phone in my hands, and whispered, "I don't need a phone. I need you." The gift that should have made me happy only deepened the emptiness. Not long after, my husband grew weaker. One night, his cough worsened so much that I thought we might lose him. I held his hand and said, "Stay with me. Please, stay." In the morning, I called my children. I told them, "Your father is not well. I need you to come." My eldest said, "I can't leave work right now, Mama. Maybe next week." My daughter said, "The children have school. It's difficult to travel." My youngest said, "I'll try, Mama, but no promises." No promises. I hung up the phone, my hands trembling. I turned to my husband and whispered, "They are not coming." He closed his eyes and said softly, "Then it's just us, like always." I sat beside him, my heart breaking into pieces I could not gather. That was the turning point. That was the moment I finally saw the truth I had been refusing to admit. They had moved on. They had built new lives, new families, new priorities, and we were no longer at the center of their world. We were on the edges, fading slowly into the background. I wanted to believe that love could hold them close forever, but love, it seemed, was not enough to keep them here. One evening, my neighbor stopped by. She was younger than me, full of energy. She saw me sitting on the porch, alone, and asked gently, "Why don't your children visit Auntie?" I forced a smile and said, "They are busy." But she looked at me with kind eyes and said, "Auntie, don't wait for them to fill your days. Fill them yourself. Life is too short to wait at the door." Her words stayed with me. That night, I sat by the window, staring at the stars, and whispered to myself, maybe it's time to stop waiting. But how do you stop waiting for the ones you carried in your arms, for the ones you fed, clothed, prayed for, sacrificed for? How do you let go of the hope that they will return? I didn't know the answer. All I knew was that something inside me had shifted. I began to understand that my children might never come back the way they used to, that maybe my role in their lives had changed forever. It was a painful realization, one that felt like losing a part of myself. Still, I found small comforts. I started tending to the little garden outside, planted flowers that would bloom even if no one came to see them. I joined a group of women at the community center, other mothers, other wives, who also knew the sting of loneliness. And sometimes, in the quiet of the evening, I would sit beside my husband, hold his hand, and remind myself, at least we still have each other. But even then, in the deepest part of my heart, a tiny flame of hope still burned. Hope that one day, the door would open, that I would hear familiar voices again, that my children would remember where they came from. I held on to that hope, fragile as it was, because even after everything, I still loved them more than life itself. After that breaking point, something inside me changed. I still loved my children, but I stopped waiting by the door. I stopped cooking extra plates of food on Sundays. I stopped watching the clock, hoping the phone would ring. It was not easy. My heart resisted. For years, my life had been built around them, their schedules, their visits, their voices, their laughter. To let go felt like losing them all over again. But slowly, I realized that waiting was hurting me more than their absence. My husband, though weak, was a steady comfort. He would say, "We raised them to be strong. They are living their lives. That is what we wanted. isn't it? I would nod, but deep down I still wished that strength hadn't taken them so far away. Yet, there was truth in his words. We gave them wings, and wings are meant for flying, so I tried to shift my days. Instead of sitting in silence, I began to fill the emptiness with little things. I woke early and made tea, not because anyone was coming, but because I enjoyed the warmth in my hands. I tended to the garden with more care, planting seeds of vegetables and flowers. Watching them grow gave me a strange peace, as if life was still moving forward. Even in this quiet house, I started going to the community center more often. At first, I was shy. My voice trembled when I spoke because for so long I had spoken only to my husband or to the walls. But the other women welcomed me kindly. Some were widows, some had children who lived far away, some had no one at all. In their stories, I found pieces of my own, and slowly, I stopped feeling so alone. One afternoon, after our group meeting, a woman about my age sat beside me. She said, "My son hasn't visited in 3 years. I used to cry every night, but then I realized he is alive. He is healthy. That is still something to be thankful for." Her words stayed with me. That evening, when I prayed, I changed my prayer. Instead of asking God to bring my children home, I whispered, "Thank you for keeping them safe, wherever they are." It didn't erase the pain, but it softened it. There were still hard days. Days when I missed them so much it hurt to breathe. Days when I held their old clothes close to my chest, inhaling the faint smell of the past. Days when I heard laughter in the street and thought it was theirs. But on those days, I reminded myself I cannot control their choices. I can only control how I live with mine. And so, I tried to live with dignity. One morning, I was hanging laundry in the yard when a neighbor's little girl ran up to me. She held out a flower and said, "Auntie, this is for you." My heart melted. I bent down and hugged her. That small gesture, that little hand reaching out, filled a space in me I thought would never be filled again. Children may forget, but love has a way of finding us, sometimes through strangers, sometimes through neighbors, sometimes through unexpected hands. As months passed, my husband's health remained fragile, but his spirit stayed strong. Often, he would hold my hand and say, "As long as we are together, we are not truly alone." He was right. The love we shared in this old house, the memories we had built, the life we had lived, these were treasures no one could take away. And so, even in the silence, there was still warmth. Sometimes, I would still call my children, not to complain, not to beg them to visit, but simply to say, "I love you." Sometimes they answered, sometimes they didn't, but each time I hung up, I told myself, I have done my part. The rest is theirs to carry. One evening, as I sat by the window watching the sunset, I realized something important. For so long, I had measured my worth by how often my children came home, how much they remembered me, how present they were in my life. But my worth was not in their visits. My worth was in the love I gave, the sacrifices I made, and the life I lived. Nothing could erase that. I was still their mother. I would always be their mother. Even if they forgot me, I had not forgotten them. And that was enough. Seasons turned again. The garden bloomed, then withered, then bloomed once more. I grew older. But my heart became steadier. Loneliness still visited me, but I no longer feared it. I welcomed it like an old friend, sat with it, and then let it pass. And in its place, I found peace. One night, as my husband and I lay side by side, he whispered, "Do you regret anything?" I thought for a long moment. Then I said, "No. Because even if they don't come home, I know we gave them everything we could. We gave them love, and love is never wasted." He squeezed my hand and smiled. "Then we have done well." The resolution wasn't dramatic. There was no sudden change, no miracle reunion. The house didn't suddenly fill with voices again, but inside me, something had shifted. I had stopped clinging to the hope that hurt me, and started embracing the life that was still mine to live. And in that acceptance, I found a quiet kind of freedom. Still, deep in my heart, I carried a gentle hope. Not a desperate one, not a heavy one, but a soft hope that one day, when they were ready, my children would remember, that they would find their way back, even if just for a little while, and if they didn't, then, at least I had loved them with everything in me. That was enough to make my life meaningful. The house is still quiet now. Most days, I wake to the sound of birds outside the window, not the voices of children running through the halls. The table is still set for 2, not 5. The old photo frames on the shelf gather more dust than new memories. But I am no longer angry. I am no longer waiting by the door, hoping for footsteps that may never come. Instead, I have learned to live with what is. Sometimes, neighbors still ask, "Do your children visit often?" And I smile, gently, without shame now. I simply say, they are busy, but I wish them well. Because the truth is, love is not measured only by visits, or gifts, or calls. Love is measured by what we give, when itis needed most, and in that, I know I gave everything I had. I raised them with the best of my strength. I fed them when I was hungry myself. I prayed for them when I was tired. I stayed awake on nights they were sick, and I worked through my own pain to give them comfort. That is the kind of love that leaves no room for regret. Do I miss them every day? Do I still wish they would come back more often? Yes, that wish has never left my heart. But I have learned something in these long, quiet years. Sometimes, life gives us what we do not expect. Children grow into their own worlds, and parents, sooner or later, must stand in the background and watch from afar. It is not abandonment. It is the rhythm of life. Painful, yes, but natural. I still cook my husband's favorite meals. I still tend to the flowers in my garden. I still hum the lullabies I once sang to my children. And in those simple acts, I find connection. I realize that nothing has truly disappeared. It has only changed shape. My children live on in every lesson I taught them, in every value they carry, in every choice they make for their own families, and perhaps, even if they do not come home as often as I wish, they carry a piece of me wherever they go. If I could speak to every mother and father who feels forgotten, I would tell them this: do not measure your worth by how often your children visit. Measure it by the love you poured into them when they were still in your arms. That love does not vanish. It does not fade. It lives on, even in silence. Sometimes, silence is not the absence of love. Sometimes, it is simply the distance life creates. When I close my eyes at night, I no longer picture the empty chairs. I picture the little faces that once filled them. I hear the echoes of laughter that once danced in these walls. And I let that be enough. Because at the end of the day, love is not about what we receive back. Love is about what we give freely, without condition. And I have given love, fully, deeply, endlessly. So, when my children stopped coming home, yes, it hurt. It broke something in me that will never fully heal. But it also taught me something precious, that even when the house is empty, a parent's heart can still be full of memories, full of gratitude, full of love that never ends. And if one day, maybe years from now, I hear a knock at the door, if I open it, and see familiar faces smiling back at me, I will not scold them. I will not ask, "Why did you stay away so long?" No, I will simply open my arms, smile through my tears, and say, "Welcome home."